Hey world, meet Roosevelt Edwards. He is Cedric's uncle and the author of the CedintheCity book series.
And this is Beverly Floyd. She is Cedric's aunt, and she played a supportive role with the CedintheCity book series.
So as your big sister, I have the privilege of knowing that you have been writing your whole life and have wanted to publish a book. How does it feel, that your first book being published is a book about our nephew?
Wow. So even though I've been writing, early on, writing raps, writing poetry, wrote some short stories in college. It's always been a dream, but never one that I thought would actually come to fruition. Cedric's whole life is an inspiration to us all, and with his passing, it really made me think about that inspiration and going after things that, if Cedric wanted to do something, he did it. And so that was my inspiration. So when our sister Patty approached me to ask about writing it, of course it was a no-brainer. Yes, I wanted to do it. And it just is such a blessing that I was able to, write about our nephew. And everything that he means to us and the family. So while I never thought it would ever happen at all, or even in this way, it almost seems like it was, kind of a destiny for me in order to push me to do something that I've always wanted to do, and then to have it be about Cedric, who we all love so much. It just makes it that much more special.
Yeah, he did live his life in such an inspiring way. I don't know if he intentionally, pursued inspiring people, but it happened, right? I think he was just being authentic and just being who Cedric is, but through that, so many people have been inspired, whether it was to travel the world more or to pursue something a burning desire that was deep inside, so that's really the legacy and the gift that he's left with the world.
Yeah, I don't know either if he intentionally did that, but something about me says he may have, just because Cedric was, he was a leader, definitely.
Yeah.
We learned that from Dr. Blaze and how she talked about how he was in school. And so those types of qualities, I think, may have been part of why he chose to do certain things that he did, because, he knew that it could potentially inspire others. So yeah, it's writing about him, and we know him as Lil Ced, as our nephew, who, we know him in a different light. But then, meeting with his friends and understanding him as an adult, that shows us just a whole nother side of Cedric that as his uncle, some of those things I didn't even know about him. And then, it took his passing for some of that to come to light, but I'm so honored that we're part of this project.
Oh yeah. How did it feel as you were writing, the stories about Cedric? When we went through the first draft, there were so many parts where the family sat around the table and we would just have to laugh because you captured the essence of his young self, Pooh, so well. What was that process like for you when you were writing it? Did it just flow, or did you have to, did you reflect on family, memories together? How did that come to be for you?
Yeah, it really flowed. I was, when the first meeting that we had, when we were trying to figure out, what type of book did we want it to be, we talked about the setting, we talked about his character. Those were things that, I kind of took back with me, and then kind of, thought about it a little bit more, and then it just started to flow out. When I finally, got on the computer and said, okay, let me start writing, I didn't really know certain things of where it was going to go. We had a structure of, how we wanted the story to be told, but a lot of that I did rely upon what I knew of him, what families shared about their fun times they had with him, and then just knowing the type of person that Cedric was. I really just wanted to do my best to capture it all within the book, and hopefully that comes out, that people that never knew Cedric or didn't know Cedric can feel as though they know him through the experiences that his character goes through in the book.
Yeah. So what were some of the challenges in writing a book like this?
So I've never, of course, published anything official. So part of it was that, and to a lesser degree, the responsibility of that, wanting to make sure that the family was happy with the outcome. I didn't want to disappoint, and so that was some of that. But once I started writing it and I felt good about it, I knew that the family would like it as well. Then the other part of that is just from a creative aspect, having people critique my work, which of course I've never had to experience that other than school work, where teachers say this is not the way you need to do this. But in that case, it's a grade. This wasn't a grade. This was really more important than that, because it was conveying Cedric to the world. It's a family project, so it took on a different meaning. But yeah, getting people to say, I don't like that part of it, and in certain parts of that, I held near and dear to me because I'm the writer of it. But at the same time, this is a true joint project. So as well as I do, when we had to cut some things because the book was a certain length and we needed to cut it, those were painful points to me, because I'm like, I want to keep that in there because I know what it meant to write it and the feeling that I had when I wrote it. But of course, having to understand, kind of the business side of it was a learning experience, but one that I think helps me going forward. So it was necessary for me to get that type of feedback, so for the future CedintheCity projects, hopefully we won't have to cut as much. But yeah, that was probably the most challenging piece of it.
Yeah, what a lot of people won't know is that your first draft of the book, which didn't even get to his first adventure because there was so much content, that is one of the things that made us realize, what, this is the first launch is going to be a bundle.
Yes.
A bundle. So yeah, and then from my perspective, supporting the entire project and thinking about the different roles that everyone played, you being the author, I saw that challenge every now and then. And you were, we're a very open family, and so there were many times where you just said, look, I'm not going to want to cut anything, so.
Right. Yeah, when I started writing, of course, we knew we wanted to do a series. I think we had talked about that early on. But this first adventure was really supposed to be one book of a series. But as I started writing it was pretty long. So it really was 3 at one point.
Exactly.
And we had to cut that.
From 1 to 3 to 2.
Yeah. So, but, I was okay with that just because, Ced is larger than life.
Oh, yeah.
You can't put Ced in. It was difficult to put everything that we wanted to do with him in that one little book,
Yeah.
So I was happy with that outcome. And again, for future books, now I have a better kind of a roadmap or guideline, so I think we'll be able to produce hopefully even quicker, because I think this process, that may be the other thing that's been challenging is the time frame that it took to get it to where we wanted to be and happy with it, and combining that with the illustrations and all of that process. So
perfect segue for me,
okay.
Because what I was going to ask you, or what I noticed, again, my perspective, we get through the writing, we have the manuscript, we have this fantastic editor in Chastity, an illustrator in Chastity, and having those meetings and having just, because you wrote the book, you had a visual in mind for each of the frames, each of the pages of the book. And so again, from my perspective, watching that happen, watching that unfold was pretty amazing. For you to say, oh, well, when I wrote this is what I envisioned, and then Chastity to bring it to life.
Yeah.
That was some crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was to finally see her illustrations, because, she's talented and creative, as well. And so to see her look at the manuscript and then have her vision of what it was, and then for some of those for me, like, that's exactly what I was thinking about when I wrote it. It all came together so beautifully. And so that when I finally saw even just the first illustrations of the characters, it made the manuscript grow. Just because at first it's just written in draft form. It's not even
in a Word document.
Right, in a Word document, right. So to finally see that, it made me really visualize where we were going with this. And even though I thought that it was going to be good, finally seeing those illustrations made it so much better. It just enriched the project. So I'm happy that Chastity joined the team, and her talents are evident with how it works with the book.
Yeah. Another thing a lot of people won't know, because they're gonna hold this book in their hands and they're gonna see, they're gonna read your story and see the images pop to life. What they won't know is it took a long time to find an illustrator that could really, capture Cedric the way that Chastity was able to. That was one of the longer pieces of the process moving forward.
Yeah, I remember. So we started the project sometime at the end of last year, and I had a timeline to get it done by like December. I think we started in sometime September or so, October. Yeah. But then I had like about a month and a half, 2 months. But I was quickly able to push it out, and so we were like, okay, all we need to do now is find an illustrator and we're good to go. But that process took a lot longer. And I believe that that God works in mysterious ways.
Oh, yeah.
And so the illustrators that we thought we were going to use at first, that wasn't for this series. That wasn't for this project. And so, it took a couple of those roadblocks and obstacles. But I think when Chastity, when we finally found her and saw her work, I think it was just meant to be. She's a perfect fit for this team.
You just said something. You talked about God, working in mysterious ways, and throughout, maybe our lives, but especially the past year, going on 2 years, we've had to really lean in to our faith in a way that we haven't ever had to. What other, times over the past couple of years writing on this book project have you really seen God manifest himself?
Well, I would say, this has been a hard, it's just been a hard, since Cedric passed, that's been difficult for the entire family. And I know especially for our sister Patty and Cedric, his parents, Ashley and Shannon, all of this has hit them harder than it has hit anybody else. And so, I didn't know often sometimes how to approach them, how to comfort them. And so this was God's way of saying, okay, you have this ability, this talent that I feel he's blessed me with that. And this was the way that I could help comfort them, to be a part of this project. Family project is a way that he was able to use me to be able to help them through this process. I really believe that. And, however it might bring joy to them, laughter, comfort, however it works for them, I'm happy that he allowed me to play that role for them, because I didn't know how to do it any other way. So, what about you? How do you feel like this is, we're faith people, and so how do you feel like this is?
I feel the same way. When Patty and Ced asked me to support the project in whatever way, capacity that I could. It was very similar. Like, number one, of course I will, but there were also many times where I didn't know how to comfort. I didn't have words. I was hurting myself too. Don't know how to, not a very expressive person when it comes to those really vulnerable, being very vulnerable with my emotions. So, I think just however I can contribute in whatever way, even if it was just supporting the Zoom call and offering, critique here and there. I agree. It's just been a complete honor and probably one of the highlights of my life. I can't imagine that there'll be any other venture that I will take on that will mean as much to me.
Right.